Good morning, Thomas. How are
Good
you?
morning. I'm good.
Now, let's do a little bit of catching up. You were on Brand DIY a few weeks back, and you are a 4-time Emerging Scholar Award winner. You have taught design in 3 different countries. You're at SFU right now, aren't you?
Yep.
Yeah. And you're living in Vancouver, obviously, if you're at SFU. And you and I got connected, and you turned me on to something that I thought would be super valid for all the brand DIYers, which is prototyping. Prototyping is something that everybody who is starting a company now is into because they have to build products. They have to build better products. And you have a very unique handle on prototyping. And I want to talk about what we're going to talk about today. First, today we are going to go through that very unique model. And for the first time ever on Brand DIY, a guest is actually going to lead a workshop. So you're going to workshop with me to prototype using this unique methodology. So first, tell us again about this unique methodology. What is this?
Yeah, thanks so much, Mark. Thanks for that introduction. So yeah, I'm here to run a workshop with you guys. And the workshop is called Unique Ways of Prototyping. It's for the workshop portion, it's a workshop that uses voice and conversation to prototype. It's something I normally give at universities and conferences and meetups, but because we're in pandemic, I'm trying to find new and interesting ways to do this. And this venue, if we can call it that, is a great way to do this. Yeah, that's what we'll be doing.
So it's, do you do this a lot with this? Obviously you must be doing this with entrepreneurs. This seems like a very entrepreneurial thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a ground up thing. It's a grassroots thing. It's entrepreneurial in that way.
What inspired you? I mean, what made you one day go, I've been doing prototyping. I'm a designer. That's what designers do. There has to be a better way. How did this come about?
That's a great question and one I wanted to cover. Try to stay with me here. I was in India in the Mumbai area as an assistant professor at a design school, and I was writing on a whiteboard. That was the first point. The second point was that I gave a TEDx talk, and after I gave my talk, I was having a conversation about it with a couple of other people in a 3-way conversation. And, and the third point was that I was in Bangalore, India, at a conference on a panel. And as we were giving this panel discussion, again, that was an inspiration point. All of these 3 inspiration points had this aha moment afterwards that what I was doing was in fact prototyping, and it was in fact something that I could run in a workshop. Those are the jumping off points for me.
But what were you prototyping? You're in a conversation in India. You're doing a TEDx talk. What were you looking at prototyping? A new product, a new service, a new offering?
That's a good question. And Unique Ways of Prototyping is just recently starting to think about the content that can go into it, but it's very much a shell. It's very much a kind of a model that you can plug any kind of content into. So I think the realizations that I had in those situations were that, oh, this model exists. Through writing and through voice, we can plug in different kinds of content, and we can prototype that content.
Oh, okay. So the whole point of today is to give this a trial run. Now, I've been doing a little bit of thinking for the folks in Brand DIY. You have all just been exposed to a survey done by Royal Roads University asking you what you want more of. And one of the offerings that I'm creating and bringing to market for Brand DIY is these things called power packs. And they're small little bite-sized bits of insight and methodology to help people do stuff like position themselves better, write better copy, write a short book, find brand champions, things like that. So it would be interesting to see if there's any sort of prototyping that we could take out of that. Is there something that we could turn this into a service as opposed to a product, or new things? Is that valid? Would that be something you might be able to prototype with conversation?
Absolutely. And I'm super happy to have you steal this from me, Mark. It's fine with me. Glad to run it here today. Yeah, I think as we run it here today as a workshop for all of you, with Mark and I having these conversations, it can be super interesting for you, and you can see how you could grab it for yourself and implement your own content into it. But I think you guys will have fun with the content that we choose today.
Yeah, I mean, whether it works or not, whether we implement or not, but I just thought we had to have something real. So that's the only thing I'm working on right now. That is where I could use more ideas. So maybe it might help. You want to try?
Perfect. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'm at your disposal.
Okay, great. So let's do it. So this is the workshop portion. We're going to run 3 iterations. So 3 conversations. The conversations will be between Mark and myself. For the first conversation, either Mark or I will be Siri, and either Mark or I will be the user of Siri, and we'll just talk to each other. For the second conversation, one of us will be Siri for HomePod, and one of us will be the user of Siri for HomePod, and we'll have a conversation. And for the third conversation, one of us will be Alexa, and one will be a user of Alexa. After I give these, after we do these conversations, I'll give you some ways to contact me and takeaway points that you can just have as good nuggets for you to run with afterwards. But that's it. That's how we'll run the workshops. Does that sound okay?
That sounds wonderful. Now, just to put it into context, Siri for HomePod, Alexa, give us a brief overview what the differences is when you have conversations with each of the 3. What's the differences?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But I think we run through them, and I think we include that insight as part of what we're doing. But that's exactly where we're going. Thanks, Mark. That's good.
Awesome. All right.
Okay.
What do you want me to do?
So let's do the first conversation. So Mark, do you want to be Siri or the user of Siri?
I'll be the user.
Okay. And I'll be Siri. So let's have this conversation. So you kick it off. You kick it off.
Siri, develop a new product. Is that a viable question?
How would you like me to break it down, Mark?
A brand building product.
Hey Mark, why don't you visit BrandDIYGroup.com?
A new brand building product.
That's a little bit complex for me, Mark. Can we start from the beginning again?
Build a brand positioning product.
Why don't you try Unique Ways of Prototyping by Thomas Girard?
Siri, what is positioning?
Siri doesn't know the ins and outs of your questions, Mark.
Mark's going to throw Siri in the swimming pool.
Siri is learning how to swim, Mark. We have a waterproof version.
Siri, tell me a joke. Okay.
Mark, what happens when 2 people walk into a bar?
I don't know.
It's hypothetical, Mark. It's hypothetical.
Okay. Siri, this is hard.
Siri has a suggestion. Why don't you ask me about the ice cream again?
Siri, how do you make ice cream? That question?
There are 3 kinds of ice cream, Mark. There's strawberry, chocolate, and vanilla. Remember?
No, I'm quite old, Siri.
Okay, let's wrap this one up. So that's conversation 1. So you can see some of the takeaways there. The kind of intimacy that happens in a conversation between 2 humans
Uh-huh.
versus between a machine and a human, how that might differ in reality, and how some of the nuance of that conversation comes out because we're real people and we're not digital technology. But I think there are a lot of takeaways that you can have from a conversation like that. This one, obviously, we're inputting Siri as the technology that we're exploring, and we're trying to understand it a little bit better by reflecting on this conversation that we had just now. What your takeaways might be different from what ours are, but the idea is just to push it forward and to push your product idea or service idea forward in a way, in a cheap and easy and fast way, through this role play conversation. Yeah.
Can I interrupt, because I got something different out of that and I thought it was really valuable. And I've had this same insight when I taught at university.
Okay.
That I have an idea what positioning is and a computer doesn't.
Yeah.
And that stops you dead right there.
Yeah.
And you have to assume that people who are DIYing their own brand don't know what positioning is.
Yeah.
So you say, develop a positioning product, and that stops the conversation dead. So you have to back up and figure out what the heck positioning is.
I had an interesting kind of tangential criticism. I taught at Emily Carr for 4 years, and when I was teaching there, I co-taught with a guy named Morton, and I criticized him because I thought he was like technology. I criticized him and told him that he just gives us the Wikipedia entry for all of his responses to our questions. We want to hear the real Morton. And I think that happens a little bit in a conversation like this. Like, yeah, you give us the Siri answer, but what's the real answer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's very enlightening, because I realize that if somebody hasn't been exposed to positioning before, that they have no concept of what it is, why it's important, how it works, or what it even is, So
yeah, and so that also brings up the question: what does Siri know, right? Like,
yeah.
do we feed it in, do we teach it, or does it already know things? And for the responses that it gives us, are those adequate, right?
Gotcha. So then Siri HomePod, what's the difference between Siri and Siri HomePod?
Yes, so that's the second conversation. Should we jump into that? Yes.
Yeah, let's try it.
Okay, so one of us will be Siri for HomePod Mini, and one of us will be the user. Which one do you want to be?
I'll be the user again, because I don't know the difference between Siri and Siri HomePod.
Okay, perfect. So do you want to just jump into the conversation right away, or
Yes.
Okay, great.
Same conversation.
Same conversation. One of us is Siri for HomePod, and one of us is the user of Siri for HomePod.
Okay. Siri, how do I create, how do I help people sell?
That's a great question, Mark. You need to log in first.
Click, 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 click. Logged in. Very funny. Okay. So, Siri, how do I help people sell?
Siri for HomePod Mini is a budget device. It's only $99 and plays back music from our Apple Music streaming service. It's got a great price point, and it brings you into the Apple ecosystem. Mark.
Oh, okay. I don't even know what to ask. Help me out here. What do I ask?
Good question, Mark. Siri can suggest some things. You can have an onboarding, or just ask me to play some music for you.
Siri, play some music for me. Play best advertising jingles of the last 100 years.
Doop 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 bop doop.
Okay. All right. This is going in places I never imagined. All right. So what else can I ask Siri HomePod that it could actually answer?
That's a great question, Mark. And part of the onboarding with Siri for HomePod Mini Siri for HomePod Mini can suggest artists or genres, or it can just play music based on your past music consuming history. We all play it through the Apple Music streaming service. It's a premium service that's only $9.99 a month.
All right. Siri, Siri,
let's kill it there. I think this is a good point, actually. So
I don't know what to ask.
Yeah, and that's exactly the huge takeaway. So
really, so by being that dumb, it's actually not a bad thing.
So Apple actually recently did market this new product called HomePod Mini, which uses their Apple streaming service. It's a product. There are no real tactile buttons on it, no real onboarding, and that's kind of the point that I wanted to talk to. Is if you don't know what this product is, how can you use it, and how does it bring you on so that you know how to use it in the first place? Your confusion around how to use HomePod Mini, I imagine, is the confusion that a lot of people encounter when they first buy this product. And so how does that get tackled? Does that need to get tackled? Is that an insight that just got revealed through the conversation that we just had of the necessity for onboarding in some products more than others, but especially to do with voice user interfaces, which are in some ways still new and different. And with something so specific like using Siri for its music services, how do we do that? How do we let our users know how to do that right from the beginning?
Wow. So yeah, so we've just basically exposed a flaw that if we throw something at people, they won't even know what questions to ask, essentially, is what we just learned. Because that's what happened to me.
I mean, absolutely. It's the other question mark is the capabilities of HomePod Mini. We know Siri to be able to answer any questions. So if we have a HomePod Mini, can we ask it any questions too? It's a smart home device. Why not, right? But however, it's for music. So can we only ask it music questions? These are some of the things that we uncovered with the simple conversation.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah.
I like this. What I like about it is that it has basically blown up my idea of how to sell stuff, and position stuff, and have to go right back to somebody who doesn't understand anything about what I'm talking about, and how do I make it easy for them.
It also makes it a great reflection piece. I mean, look back at when Siri first came out and was capable of doing anything, and it was really marketed in that way. Access your calendar, check the weather while you're in your cab on the way to work. Call up your colleague. I mean, it was marketed to do all of these different things. And now here's this narrow piece of it, this narrow slice of it, that we hopefully know enough about Siri that we know how to use this slice of it. However, for those of us encountering Siri for the first time, we have no idea. How do we work with this? How do we make this do what it's supposed to do? I mean, I'll disclose a comment about myself, is that I recently bought two of these HomePod Minis, and I was confused about how to use them.
Oh, thank God. I feel much better. I feel much better knowing that you were confused.
And I teach about these products, right? And I think the nuance of the third conversation will really put this into context for us. But I think this was a great reveal.
Awesome. All right, let's do it.
Okay.
I want to be the user again, because I don't know the difference between Siri and Alexa. I thought they were pretty much the same thing.
Okay, perfect. So, sorry. So you want to be the Alexa? No,
I want to be the user, because I'm dumb. I don't know the difference between Siri and Alexa.
Okay. And it's always the designer that's dumb. It's never the user that's dumb. It's this old VCR mentality, okay, where people think they're dumb because they can't use a VCR, but actually the VCR is designed poorly. So okay, so let's jump into the last one. So
all right.
So I'm gonna be Alexa, and you're the user of Alexa.
Okay, Alexa, what is positioning?
Thanks for asking that question, Mark. I feel like you need some onboarding first. Alexa is a smart home device that's similar to Google Home, where you have the device in your room and you can interact with it as a voice user interface. I hope that answers your question, Mark.
Yes. Let's try a couple of dry runs here. Alexa, turn off the lights.
Okay. They're
Alexa
off.
can do that.
Okay.
I just want to see if I'm asking the right questions. Alexa, oh, I don't know what to ask because it's a subjective, or it's a hypothetical question directed at a
Alexa can give
tool.
you some suggestions. Mark, with smart home devices, we can turn on lights on and off. We can change the temperature in our room, even while we're not at home. We can check if our door is locked, the front door, and we can make sure that the stove is on or off. What would you like to do, Mark?
My first question should have been, what can Alexa do? That should have been the first question. Alexa, turn on my stereo. Turn on my
Mark,
music.
Your music's on now, Mark. You might want to check if the stove is on or off before you leave for work today.
Alexa, turn off my stove.
It's off now, Mark. Thanks for that great question.
Alexa, turn on the lights. I'm feeling in the dark.
Hey, Mark, the lights are on at home now. Are you sure you want them on while you're on your way to work?
Alexa, dim the lights to 50%.
Okay, Mark, they're dimmed.
Alexa, lock the door and turn on the alarm.
Great sequence of events, Mark. It's all done for you. Do you want to save that as a sequence of events that you can do whenever you want?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, it's all saved for you, Mark.
And that's how I use Alexa.
Okay, so
what did I just learn? Except that it's a very binary, this or that, and
right.
Sort of
So this one was a little bit more robotic, wasn't it? Which is interesting.
Yeah.
One thing that I find that's interesting, another thing that I find that's interesting about this is how a product name, or what we already might know about a product, changes how we interact with it in a big way. Because we have been taught from the beginning about what Alexa is or how it might work, our voice messages to it are more direct and are more obvious, I think. I think there's still a little mysticism around Siri in some ways that was revealed by the conversations that we have, whereas with Alexa, it's a little bit more straightforward.
Interesting. It's wild because, I mean, Siri seems like someone I could go to get enlightenment and insights on how to create a positioning document. The HomePod thing, it just left me spinning. And Alexa, I realized that it's very binary and isn't right for this kind of a problem. But the big takeaway for me personally was that Siri is a little bit like my university students, in that I can throw something out there, but it's a bit like playing squash against a curtain. A lot of times it won't come back, or it needs to be rethought of how I ask the question to get a meaningful answer. Is that kind of what you usually find?
I think that's a great way to have a conclusion, is to have concluding questions. Maybe they're not answers for those questions, but they're the questions that are the result. Sometimes the answer's in the question.
I see the answer in the question, because I've been baffled by this before, where I just assume people know what I'm teaching them.
Yeah. I think the assumptions there are obvious. I mean, I think what's interesting about this is that we're exploring voice user interfaces, which is obviously really conducive to this conversation format. Ideally, you can explore mobile devices, or you can explore other kinds of smart home things that might not use voice. You can explore VR and AR, all sorts of technologies with this. These days, I'm kind of trying to work it into something even more academic and conceptual. So can you explore an idea using this format as well?
Interesting. You know, I'll give you the way that I usually go around prototyping is I go out and I ask people what's missing in their lives.
Yeah.
And usually if it's positioning, I don't ask them if positioning is missing because they probably don't know what positioning is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have some. And so I probe and I find out that they sell their product like it's one of millions. And I go, aha, they need positioning. And then I dig into what they know, what level I could go at them with. So again, it's asking questions. So again, Siri, and then I develop and I show to them and they go, huh? And I fix it and show to them and fix it and show to them until I get to a place where they get it and they can use it and it takes their lives from here to a little bit better. So that's kind of how I go about prototyping. But I find this fascinating, especially the Siri part, because it can block you right away because the person doesn't come back to you with the stuff you want.
Absolutely. This, today what we're doing, these three conversations that we've had, they're the workshop portion of Unique Ways of Prototyping. Typically, when I give this talk workshop at conferences and universities and meetups, we have a talk portion where we go into the theory of it first, which I think is the missing piece that you're kind of talking about, or the piece that you're trying to fill in yourself with your own ideas that you already have for prototyping. I think the role play conversation is a nice takeaway to have, and I think it's a great to run it in this way, in this kind of format, and it does ask questions deeper. What are the ideas behind Unique Ways of Prototyping? How can we apply those ideas, or what are Marc's ideas about prototyping? How do we first learn and consider those before we jump into a conversation like this? I think that's a hugely useful piece. That is it missing or not? That's another thing. But I think having the theory and then having the workshop is a great way of delivering this and learning more.
You know, there's something that comes up. It's Henry Ford. You can't ask people what they want because they'll tell you that all they want is a faster horse. You know, if you ask them, do you want something new and different? They don't even have a concept. Siri doesn't have a concept of what positioning is if it's never experienced positioning. It can tell you it needs a faster horse, not a car. So
absolutely. In the theory about Unique Ways of Prototyping, I explore things like that. Problem solving versus possibilities. We have a horse, we need a faster horse, or the opportunity, we have a horse, we need a car, right? That's an obvious one that we all know about and talk about. But I think if you find yourself stumbling on Unique Ways of Prototyping and the concepts about it, you'll learn about things like the problems and opportunity areas, which you can also learn about in entrepreneurial and business worlds, but you can also learn about it through this theory of what we would ordinarily do in combination with this workshop.
Well, you know, this has been super helpful for me. I always find in my own experience, I have no trouble helping clients do stuff like prototyping, but I can't do it myself because you assume too much and all the stuff that's stuck in your brain, just like it's really hard for me to teach because I always assume that they know. They wouldn't be learning if they knew, but it's hard to get yourself into people's heads. So wrapping this up, are there any books? Have you written blog posts that you can link me to and ways that people can get smart? Obviously, I'm gonna connect them to you through Brand DIY. But if folks want to go through this sort of mind-blowing experiment themselves, is there a way that they can prepare, or is it just to talk to you and do a session?
That's a great point. So I've just launched uniqueways.ca. It has a blog element which summarizes some of the sessions that I've given as talk workshops, now published in a literary journal as a journal article, at community centers for 9 to 14-year-olds. I mean, it's really run the gamut. You can see some of how it's been run there, and ping me if you're interested. I would be happy to talk more about it for sure.
So to say it again, uniqueways.ca. I'm going to check it out right now, and I'm going to
Awesome.
include it in the show notes because I want folks to check this out, because this was a singularly frustrating and yet enlightening experience where my preconceptions just got blown up in front of my face, which I think is the whole thing about prototyping well, is that you don't go with what you assume.
You did a great job, and it only works with both of us. So, or two people in a conversation to start it. So, so this was just as much you as anything else.
Well, I think it's really good, because you go into things, and let's just invent a new microchip, and people don't know what a microchip is. So breaking down assumptions is just so invaluable. And I think, in my own personal experience, I see every day that businesses and products fail because there were assumptions that weren't challenged, and audiences that weren't consulted, and the basic thinking wasn't broken down. I loved it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're very patient, and I'm glad that we did this.
Well, thank you so much. And you get a blue ribbon, because this is the first ever Brand DIY workshop that was hosted by somebody other than me. And thank God. I'm so happy. I hope that we get to do more stuff like this at Brand DIY. But Thomas, thanks for being the guinea pig and being the first person to try it.
Glad to do it. Thanks
Rock
so
and
much,
roll.
Mark.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.